You're in the middle of a conversation. It's going fine. Then you reach for one word, and it isn't there. The person in front of you is still waiting. Your mind circles the same empty space, again and again. Nothing comes. So you stop. Not because you have nothing to say, because you don't have that one word. Maybe it happens ordering coffee. Maybe it happens telling a friend about your weekend. The topic doesn't matter. The pause feels almost the same every time. Here's something worth noticing. You didn't run out of English. You ran out of patience for the one word you were looking for. There were other ways to say it. There almost always are. But in that moment, none of them felt like an option. It's a strange kind of stuck. You're not confused about the topic. You're not lost in the conversation. One single piece is missing, and somehow, that one piece feels like it's holding the whole sentence hostage. So you went quiet instead. Maybe you said, never mind. Maybe you just let the sentence trail off, unfinished, and hoped the other person would fill in the rest. Most people think they stop speaking because they don't know enough English. That's usually not the real reason. Today, we look at one small habit that keeps you talking, even when the exact word won't come. Not by learning more words, by using the ones you already have, in a different shape. Let's stay with that feeling for a moment, because it's worth naming clearly. The conversation doesn't stop for you. The other person is still there, still waiting, still expecting a sentence. But inside your head, everything has paused. You're not thinking about the topic anymore. You're only thinking about one missing word. The harder you search, the further it seems to go. And after a few seconds, most people give up completely. Not on the word, on the whole sentence. That's the strange part. Losing one word rarely just costs you one word. It often costs you the entire thought you were trying to share. Why do so many English learners stop speaking when they forget just one word? That's the question we're answering today. There are other habits that help with speaking in general. Talking to yourself in English, listening at a level you mostly understand, repeating right after a speaker, describing your day out loud, or saying, "Let me think," instead of going silent. All of them are useful. We'll mention them again before we finish, but today we go deep into just one. It's the habit that keeps a sentence alive, exactly at the moment it usually dies. Not tomorrow, not with more study, right in that exact second, when the word disappears. Here's today's habit, in one sentence. Whenever you get stuck looking for the exact word, describe the idea a different way, instead of stopping to search. That's it. Not a perfect word, not a dictionary, just a different way to say the same thing. It sounds almost too simple to matter. But this small shift, repeated in real moments, changes what happens the instant a word goes missing. Here's why this matters more than it might seem. Most learners spend years collecting new words, hoping that one day they'll finally have enough. But even people with large vocabularies still lose a word sometimes, mid-sentence, without warning. No amount of studying removes that moment completely. What if learning another 1,000 words isn't the thing that's holding you back? What this habit changes isn't your vocabulary. It changes what you do in the half second after a word disappears. And that half second decides whether the sentence lives or dies. Most learners never get taught that half second matters at all. Classes teach words. Classes teach grammar. Almost nobody teaches what to do the instant a word goes missing, mid-sentence, in front of a real person. Think about it. You've probably spent hours memorizing word lists, but maybe never once practiced what to do the moment one of those words refuses to appear. That gap, not your vocabulary, is what today's habit is going to fill. But here's something interesting. Most conversations don't fall apart because of one missing word. They fall apart because we believe that missing word is the only way to express the idea. The moment we stop believing that, we stop treating every forgotten word like the end of the conversation. Let's talk about why this is hard. Because it is, and that's very normal. Picture a job interview. The interviewer asks a question. You know the answer, but one word won't come. The interviewer waits, pen ready, looking at you. The harder you chase the word, the further it seems to run. A few seconds pass, longer than they should feel. Finally, you say, "Never mind, it's not important." It was important. You just couldn't find the door to say it. This doesn't only happen in interviews. It happens in a work meeting, when someone turns to you for input. It happens on a video call, when your camera is on and everyone can see you thinking. The setting changes, the feeling doesn't. That thought, "I know this, why can't I say it?" adds pressure to a moment that was already hard. So instead of trying another way, most people take the easiest way out. They stay quiet. They say, "Never mind." They let the sentence disappear. Every time that happens, your brain learns the same lesson again. One word, one meaning, no other path. If that word isn't there, nothing is. This belief usually comes from years of learning vocabulary in lists. One word, one translation, one correct answer, tested and checked. Nobody ever showed you the other 10 ways to say the same idea. That's not a flaw in you. It's just what vocabulary lists teach, by accident, without meaning to. Think back to how you first learned new words. A list, a translation next to it, maybe a quiz the next day. The quiz only ever accepted one right answer. Nobody ever asked you to explain the word a different way, so your brain never practiced doing that under pressure. There's another layer to this, too. Many learners feel that describing a word instead of naming it sounds childish, as if a real speaker would always know the exact word and only beginners have to explain around it. But that isn't true. Even fluent speakers describe things all the time. When a word slips their mind, in any language, think about your own first language for a second. Even there, sometimes a word slips away, and you say something like, "the thing," you know, the round one. Native speakers do this constantly, without a second thought. Here's something worth remembering. The next time you feel stuck, you almost never run out of English completely. You run out of one specific word, and one missing word doesn't mean the whole sentence has to disappear with it.
Ear.
None of this means something is wrong with you. This exact pause happens to almost every English learner, no matter how much vocabulary they know. You haven't failed. You've just never practiced the option sitting right next to going quiet. It's worth saying that plainly. Nobody taught you this option existed. You didn't skip a lesson. The lesson was simply never given. There's no single day when this changes completely. It happens conversation by conversation, one missing word at a time, until describing starts to feel less like an effort and more like the obvious thing to do. Some language teachers explain learning a language like walking through a forest. At first, there's no clear path. You have to push through, step by step, and it feels slow. But the more times you walk the same route, the more the path clears. Eventually, your feet know the way, almost without thinking. Now, here's the part worth noticing. If you only ever walk toward one single word, you build one single path and nothing else. The moment that path is blocked, you have nowhere to go. You just stop, standing in the trees. But every time you describe an idea a different way, you're not walking the same narrow path. You're clearing a new one, right beside it. Over time, you build several paths to the same idea, not just one. So if one path is blocked, another one is already there, ready to use. This is different from how most people picture learning a language. They picture one long, straight road, and getting better just means walking further down it. But a language isn't one road. It's a whole forest of small paths, all leading toward the same ideas, from different directions. Here's what that looks like in real life. Imagine you forget the word umbrella, right in the middle of a sentence. Instead of stopping, you say, "the thing you use when it rains." The other person understands immediately. The conversation keeps moving. You didn't need the word umbrella in that moment. You needed a way through, and you found one. That description wasn't perfect English. It didn't need to be. It did the one job that mattered. It kept you talking. Think about someone who practiced this for a few weeks. Every time a word disappeared, instead of stopping, she described the idea a different way. It felt awkward at first, a little slow, a little strange to explain something so simple. But after a few weeks, something shifted. She stopped freezing. Even without the exact word, she kept talking, kept describing, kept moving through the sentence instead of stopping in the middle of it. Nothing about her vocabulary changed overnight. What changed was her first response to a missing word. Instead of silence, a substitute. Instead of one path, several. That's really the whole idea behind this habit. You're not trying to memorize more words faster than you forget them. You're building more than one way to reach the same idea, so losing one path never means losing the whole conversation. So how do you actually describe an idea, in the moment, without slowing everything down? You don't need many patterns. You need a small handful, ready before you need them, like a small toolbox you carry into every conversation. It's a thing you use for, forget the word kettle. It's a thing you use for boiling water. It's like, forget the word pillow. It's like a soft cushion you sleep on. People use it when, forget the word umbrella. People use it when it rains. You can find it in, forget the word wallet. You can find it in, your pocket, and it holds your money and cards. None of these need to be perfect. They just need to point toward the same idea, from a different direction. Each one is a small substitute, standing in for the word that didn't come. Notice something about all 4 patterns. None of them ask you to think about grammar rules in the moment. They're already built, waiting for you, ready to hold whatever word just disappeared. You don't need to choose the perfect pattern either. Any one of them will usually work. The goal isn't a perfect substitute. The goal is staying in the conversation. If you freeze for a second trying to pick the right pattern, that's fine too. Even a plain, "it's like a," said quickly, with the wrong grammar, still moves the sentence forward. A messy description beats a perfect silence, every time. This habit doesn't ask for a fixed time or place. It attaches to a feeling, the exact moment a word won't come. In that moment, instead of stopping, You reach for one of these patterns, and you keep going. Being consistent matters more than knowing many patterns. You don't need all of them memorized perfectly. You need one reflex. When a word disappears, describe, don't stop. That reflex only builds through repetition. In real, ordinary moments, one missing word at a time. Think of it like a light switch, not a long process. You don't need to plan your description in advance. The moment a word disappears, you just reach for the nearest pattern and let the sentence keep moving. The pause gets shorter every time you practice it, not because you think faster, but because you stop trying to think of the one perfect word at all. So here's your one action to use whenever a word won't come. Whenever you get stuck looking for the exact word, describe the idea a different way instead of stopping to search. Let's say that one more time so it's easy to remember. Whenever you get stuck looking for the exact word, describe the idea a different way instead of stopping to search. Let me tell you about someone who used to go quiet every time a word disappeared. In the middle of a sentence, if the right word didn't come, she just stopped talking. She'd say, "Never mind," and move on, leaving half a thought behind. Over time, she started saying less and less, not because she had less to say, but because she was tired of stopping mid-sentence. One day, she decided to try something different. The next time a word disappeared, instead of stopping, she described it. It's the thing you use when it felt awkward. Her sentence sounded longer than it needed to be, a little clumsy, a little unsure. But the conversation kept going. Nobody seemed to mind the extra words. Nobody even noticed that a word was missing at all. One evening, a coworker even said her explanation was clearer than the word itself would have been. She hadn't expected that. She'd been so focused on hiding the gap that she never noticed her workaround might actually help the other person understand her better. She kept trying it, week after week. Not perfectly. Some days she still forgot. Some days she still stopped, catching herself only after the sentence had already died. But little by little, describing became her first response, instead of her last resort. A few weeks later, she noticed something. She wasn't afraid of forgetting words anymore. A missing word used to feel like a wall, something final, something that ended the conversation right there. Now it just felt like a small turn in the road, something to walk around, not something to stop at. She started speaking more, not because she suddenly knew more words, but because she stopped needing every word to be perfect before she opened her mouth. Her friends didn't notice a big change. They just noticed she talked more, laughed more, stayed in conversations longer than she used to. None of them knew about the small habit behind it. That's usually how this works. The change is invisible from the outside. Nobody sees the missing word, or the description that replaced it. They just experience a conversation that kept going, instead of one that quietly stopped. Can you try this? The next time a word won't come? I think you can. It won't be perfect. Your description might be longer than the word itself. That's completely fine. A clumsy description, spoken out loud, keeps a conversation alive. Silence ends it, every single time. Nobody around you is keeping score of how smooth your sentences sound. Most people are just glad the conversation kept going. That's all a description needs to do. Let's go back to where we started. You're in the middle of a conversation. Next time, maybe the word still won't come. But this time, instead of stopping, you describe it. It's the thing you use for a little clumsy maybe, but the sentence keeps moving. The other person nods, understands, and the conversation continues, right past the word that almost stopped it. This time, the conversation won't stop. You don't feel the small failure you used to feel. Instead, the conversation just moves forward, carrying you with it. That's the whole shift, in one small moment. Not a bigger vocabulary, just a different first move, the moment a word goes missing. You'll still forget words. Everyone does, in every language, for their whole lives. That was never going to change. What changes is what happens right after, in that small gap where a conversation usually breaks. Let's remember what we talked about today. A missing word doesn't have to end a sentence. There's almost always another way to describe the same idea. Silence feels safe, but it stops the conversation completely. A description, even a clumsy one, keeps it moving. Building several paths to the same idea makes you harder to stop, not just at one word, but in general. Being consistent, reaching for description instead of silence, again and again, is what makes this habit real. It won't feel natural on the first try, or even the 10th, but each time you choose it, the choice gets a little easier. Now let's slow down and review our key words. Stuck means you can't move forward. You're frozen in one place. Describe means to explain something using other words. A path is the way your mind travels to find a word or an idea. Substitute means to use something else instead. A pause is a short stop, a moment of silence. And consistent means doing the same small thing every time you need it. We didn't go deep today into talking to yourself, listening at your level, repeating after a speaker, narrating your day, or using small phrases like, "let me think." All of them help too, in their own way. But for now, just one small shift. The next time a word won't come. Whenever you get stuck looking for the exact word, describe the idea a different way, instead of stopping to search. If this habit feels helpful, come back tomorrow and try another small step with me.